I thought we could have a video today focused more directly on practice. I I started this YouTube video because I love sharing stories and getting a little creative and bringing different topics together. I do it all because I really truly want to guide us to this set of principles that are directly supported with practices that have truly transformed my life. So, if I can put a few words to what exactly I mean that by that, you know, a few years ago, it seems just so long ago, but really only a few years ago, working as an engineer at a corporate job, trying to start my own business in health coaching and being really focused on research, on science, living in this space where I was really completely in my head. Now, I love being in my head. It's a brilliant space for imagination and gathering information and coming up with new ideas and making decisions and having insights. It's a wonderful place to be. And I truly enjoyed being in that space, especially as I built up my first platform, Your Health Reprogrammed. Then I ran into a brick wall. more, more realistically, I repeatedly kept running into obstacles that I just couldn't break through. And each time this happened, I felt myself burning out a little bit more. I became increasingly anxious, depressed. It's a pattern that moved forward into what could be considered a full-blown traumatic experience, right? Manifesting in panic attacks and just not a good place to be in. Not a good place to be in. And what I've learned in my time studying yoga tradition, studying more about the nervous system, studying all this new incredible knowledge we have about trauma and all these different complex workings of our body. That's the answer right there, right? The problem, which became the solution, which became my path forward, is this body piece, right? So many of us live life so fully in our heads. It's the way our modern world is set up. We live on our computers, we live on our phones, and we are taught to think, to think, to think. And again, not knocking thinking. Thinking is a brilliant skill, and being able to analyze information, make decisions from a headspace is so important. But as we live life disconnected from the rest of our whole selves, well, what happens is what happened to me, running into obstacles such as crippling anxiety, where I just felt horrible all the time. I felt like I was on fire with brain fog and an inability to actually get myself to do anything. Meanwhile, my brain is lighting up because there's so many amazing things to do in this world. So many amazing things to do in this world. But I couldn't actually get myself to do it. And I would get so mad and so frustrated, and I would focus more on my headspace style meditation and do all the things I could with my mindset to get myself to do these things that I wanted to do and to solve my problems with how I was feeling, all the while doing it from a headspace. It's what I've learned over time. And it is something that gets to unfold over time, is to reconnect with my body, reconnect with all those different aspects that truly make up who I am as a human being. My mind being one spectacular part of that all. My entire body being another very important piece. So I told you we would be more focused on practice in this video. So guiding us to a practice. I'm here seated in a chair. You may be standing as long as you're not driving or operating machinery, all that stuff we know at this point. An invitation to guide me, to follow me as I guide you in this practice. Starting very simply, an invitation to feel your feet on the floor. I recommend doing this barefoot, but if that's not an option, that's just fine too. Bringing your full awareness to the bottom of your feet. Keeping this practice incredibly simple. Bringing your full awareness to the bottom of your feet. And if you find that your attention is pulled elsewhere, maybe a thought comes up and catches you and takes you away, maybe a sound pops up and catches your attention, maybe a sensation somewhere else in your body, knowing that's okay, that's gonna happen, bringing your attention back to the soles of your feet, feeling into the connection with the floor, with the ground that's holding you here in space. Being here in your feet, with the connection to the floor. From here, an invitation to find your breath. And I recommend finding your breath down in your body. So if it helps, placing one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. Starting to feel into the rise and fall of your chest, the rise and fall of your abdomen. Beginning to follow the flow of your breath. So on an inhale, feeling into the gentle expansion in your chest, in your abdomen. On the exhale, feeling into that release, that gentle contraction in your core. Inhaling again, being with that rise in your chest, your belly. Exhaling as it all releases. Continuing to take several breaths in this way. Staying with your breath, staying with the rising and falling. As you're here, perhaps you start to pick up on a rhythm, a pulse, a sort of flow. Just asking, being curious, what's the pulse, what's the rhythm that's alive here in this space? Maybe something's there, maybe there isn't there. You don't have to fight your way to find it, just staying curious, staying open. What's here? Is there a flow? Is there a pulse? Is there a rhythm as you're here breathing in and out? So you're breathing as the rise and fall of your body. An invitation to stay here as long as you'd like. Maybe there's something else that's present. Maybe there's something else that's asking for your attention. Something else that wants to be felt, to be known. Knowing you can pause the video, stay here as long as you'd like. I'm going to bring a few more words to this experience. I found my way to yoga. It was this thing that had been knocking on my door for years. If you had known me in that span of time, you probably would have heard me say, "Oh, I need to start doing yoga." And I had different reasons for it. My hips being the number one thing. They were tight and painful and locked up so that while I was rock climbing, I couldn't do some of the moves that I wanted to do. It's funny how things that become so important to us, show up. If you had been there in that time, you would have heard me say this over and over again. Oh, I need to start doing yoga. I know it would be so good for me, but I can't get myself to do it. I tried so many different things, all the tricks and tools to get myself to show up on my yoga mat and go through a 30, 45-minute practice. And every once in a while, I'd get myself to do it once. I'd do it once. I'd be proud of myself and I'm like, yes, I'm going to keep doing this. And then 6 months would go by and it was like, I haven't been doing yoga. So I became a yoga teacher so that I could get myself to do yoga. And every step of the way, I found this resistance. So I opened this video by talking about obstacles, right? As I lived life fully in my head, I kept coming up against obstacles that I just couldn't break through. One being, I need to get myself to stretch. I need to bring movement and exercises to my body that aren't so intense. And yoga being a brilliant way to do it, but not being able to actually get myself to do that. So is there anything like this in your life? Is there anything that keeps knocking at your door? Like, yes, I want to do that, or I know that thing would support me, but you just can't get yourself to do it. Well, through yoga and other embodiment practices, it was this path that finally started to unravel. Not all at once. I wasn't able to have yoga enter my life and be like, yes, I finally have the answers. I have the key. I know the solution. Now I can finally do the thing I need to do. Sometimes life works like that. Sometimes. What I experienced was each step getting to unfold. The first step for me, which I realize isn't most people's yoga journey, the first step for me, signing up for a 200-hour yoga teacher training. the steps from there unfolding, learning more about yoga philosophy, learning more about the science that we have that tells us how our human selves actually work. Help us understand the mechanisms, help us understand why there are blockages. Also, continuing to show up on the mat, continuing to show up in the space and brushing up against resistance. Doing that over and over and over again. So I teach yoga now. I have a online yoga membership program. Maybe you've heard me talk about it. Maybe you've checked it out. The invitation is always there to go check it out. I'll put the link in the description below. What I want to put words to here is that this space that I've found myself in, embodied living, it doesn't have to be about getting ourselves to a full yoga class. There's many different ways that we can work in these spaces. And for you, like it did for me, maybe it begins very simply by feeling your feet on the floor. And maybe your practice begins and starts to unfold by, for the next 10 days, feeling your feet on the floor. Maybe from there you start to find your breath. And from there, maybe each next step gets to unfold. The one day, maybe, or maybe not, you find yourself in a full yoga class, being deep in an embodied experience. Or maybe you're like me and still don't routinely find myself in yoga classes. But instead, find my yoga elsewhere. Find this embodied experience. My favorite place, out on the trails, out climbing mountains. I just recorded a couple videos on climbing mountains. If you haven't checked those out yet, I'll link them in the description. Being out in the forest on a mountain, that's for me where I get to be in these fully embodied experiences. Feeling my feet on the ground, being in the full experience of what's alive around me and what's alive within me. And that's really what I'm here to teach. And I have many different options. Again, whether yoga, whether that specific tradition is calling to you, maybe you're a little bit more curious and playful and want to join me in the We Are the Forest Embodied Living membership. There's the option to reach out to me directly to work on whatever you have going on, work with me one-on-one, where we can really cut directly to the problems that you're facing and get to work with practices in a way that most directly serve you. So many different ways to get in this practice. That is being in this fuller, deeper connection with your whole self, mind included, starting to bring in the rest of yourself, your whole body, and all those other beautiful aspects of ourself that are always there, ready to be listened to be heard, to be understood. So with that, I'm going to close this video. If you've found that practice to be supportive, please let me know in the comments. If you are thinking or feeling you might want a little bit more guidance, some direct support, please reach out directly to me. We can schedule a call and see if there is a way that I can support you directly. So, whatever the next space we find ourselves in, I look forward to seeing you there.